Aaron.
Yeah.
Why didn't you say it the first time I said Aaron?
Because it's pronounced Aaron?
You done messed up, Aaron!
Aaron is here. Welcome back, everyone, for more SPTV, where every day is a great day not to be in a cult. Well, guys, the day has come. The LA Scientology protest movement officially died last week when Scott Hochstetter, the one who has destroyed most of the protest movement up until this date, when Scott Hochstetter decided he was going to show up and counter protest the founder of the Scientology protest movement, Streets LA, William Good. You guys know him as Scientology Audit, Streets LA. Back in the day, and back in the day is only like 17 months ago, 2 Septembers ago. Well, I'll show you. Here's the creation date of Streets' Scientology Audit channel. Now, Streets has been doing protesting and has social media streaming profiles long before he started the Scientology stuff. But once upon a time, sometime just before September 2023, Streets was filming a police interaction. I think the police had pulled someone over. And this occurred right outside Scientology's middle management building on Hollywood Boulevard and Ivar Avenue. And Streets was filming. And the Scientology security guards didn't really appreciate someone harassing their good friends, the LAPD. And the Scientology security guard made a decision that he would regret for the rest of his life. And he called Streets LA some very not so nice names. And then later would insult his dead son. And William responded in saying, you don't know who I am, but you're going to find out. And I'm going to end your religion. And William proceeded to unintentionally create. You know, he was just out there doing his own thing. But he's so good at what he does. And he's so inclusive. And he's so intentionally entertaining. Meaning the purpose isn't entertainment, but his protesting style, his ability to engage with people very effectively off the cuff is entertaining. It attracts a very large audience. And William's been an activist and a protester for a long time, and he understands the importance of inclusivity. And when you're engaged in activities like this, you're doing it in a way that attracts people and invites support and gets people to want to cheer for you and join you. And that is what Streets did over the next, I want to say, close to a year before Scott Hochstetter showed up on the scene and basically destroyed it all and made it not worth doing. Just from a social perspective, Scott just destroyed the entire thing. So, by the way, here's when Streets isn't doing his Scientology stuff, he has this. This is his main YouTube channel, Film the Police LA. So, what happened about a week ago was Scott. Here's Scott sitting in his house. He had just gotten done shitting in the bucket that he shits in right here. You can tell from that shit-eating look on his face. He was basically sitting there in his van, waiting for Streets to walk by his van in a completely unrelated protest in a completely different part of town, had nothing to do with Scientology. This is part of Scott's war on anyone who doesn't agree with him when he says people are bad actors. The problem now is that Scott is now calling Streets LA, the founder of the whole damn protest movement, a bad actor. I'm a bad actor. Natalie Webster's a bad actor. Jenna Miscavige is a bad actor. Tori Chrisman is a bad actor. Eric Rader is a bad actor. You know, all these former Scientologists and second-gen former Scientologists who are out here exposing and protesting the cult they grew up in and escaped from. However, this homeless, childless, jobless piece of shit that never even heard of Scientology until 13 months ago has seen fit to show up on the scene, call people names, make accusations, wreak havoc, and destroy the protest movement that Streets started. So here is Scott basically sitting here waiting to pounce on Streets as he See, look, he's like, oh, wow, they're coming right towards me. I don't even have to move my van. I'm going to keep the sound off. Because once he finally runs into Streets comes in about 101:18. So here we go. Right after Streets. So he sort of is like, oh, there's Streets, but oh, look, an easier target. There's Jess. We're going to go after Jess because Streets would probably lay me out right here, and that would look bad for me. Okay, so then we're going to fast forward to, let's say, how about right here? Yeah, you basically have Scott showing up to this protest he's got nothing to do with to basically harass Streets. And this goes on for a good portion of the evening. Guys, if any of you have ever wondered, and I'm sure many of you don't wonder anymore, if any of you have ever wondered why, not only do I not support Scott Hochstetter, but I do not support any single individual in the protest movement who supports Scott Hochstetter in any way. Well, if you had any questions before, you no longer have any questions now. This was the inevitable end. This was the inevitable conclusion of Scott just randomly on whatever emotional whim, roller coaster, or drug he's riding that day, deciding who he's going to single out in the community for cancellation, and all of you who have supported him just jumping on board and enabling him. And unfortunately, Scott has just used his girlfriend Laura as a human shield this entire time. Any of the havoc and destruction that Scott wreaks, he can just say, I'm doing it for my girlfriend. My girlfriend grew up in this cult. So therefore, everything Scott does is wrapped up in virtue. Apparently, everywhere Scott goes, there's rapists and pedophiles. Scott's always just protecting everybody from rapists and pedophiles as far as the eye can see. I wonder why Scott always seems to be surrounded by rapists and pedophiles. Okay. So that brings us to the actual subject of today's video. Scott is now facing 16 misdemeanor counts. This is, I'll pull up the website here. Okay, you've got the case number. You've got the filing date. This was about a week ago now. You'll notice the arrest date is actually last May. And there's all sorts of counts here. So I basically took all the dates of the 16 counts. You can see the counts basically repeat, right? The same count for multiple dates. So unlawful to cause or allow emission of loud or raucous noise, disturbing the peace by loud noise. I thought there was a third one in here, but possibly not. Okay. So they are only misdemeanors, but basically you can see here that this city attorney is basically, or whoever it is, the prosecutor, I don't know who makes the decisions to file these charges, has basically been biding their time and building this case, which honestly is how it has seemed the entire time. Many people have said that to me, that it really seems like they're giving Scott an awful lot of rope to hang himself with here. And they are just slowly building a bigger and bigger case against him. So the earliest date of an incident that he's being charged with is last March 8th. Okay, so basically 11 months ago. And the charges are for March 8th, March 9th, March 16th, March 18th, April 19th, May 5th, May 6th, and May 25th. Wow. Okay, so March, April. So basically over a 2.5 month period between March of last year and May of last year, they have been holding on to these. Now, in addition to Scott being actually charged with these things, like these are charges, he has to face them. 2 other protesters that I'm not going to name got letters today from the LA city attorney. And if you did not know any better and you received this letter, you would be under the impression that you have been charged with a crime. And 2 protesters received letters like this today. In reality, what these letters are is a threat from the LA. I almost want to pull it up, but I don't want to accidentally screen share it. I want to say it's a threat from the city attorney saying, we've basically received a criminal complaint against you. You could have been charged. You were not charged, but instead you need to come to a hearing. That's essentially a phone call with an attorney from the city that says, if you don't stay on your best behavior, we might change our mind in the future and charge you with this thing. These I don't even want to get into the details of what the accusations were, because I don't really have permission to talk about anyone's business. But the charges are absolutely ridiculous. And they're against people that you would never even expect would have received a letter from this. These are from people who are not the people who get into trouble. They're not the people who are screaming in cops' faces. They're not the people who are screaming at old ladies while they're eating their lunch. They're not, if I told you who they were, you'd be like, that's absolutely insane. And it is absolutely insane. However, the charges that Scott's facing are not insane. And I wonder if, hold on, I had a message out that I was not done. No, yeah. So it seems to me, and you guys let me know, I think you guys would agree with this, but it seems to me, just looking at this, looking at the charges, looking at the dates. Okay, let me backtrack. Up until now, what we have observed time and time again is protester gets arrested. They are told that they're being charged with X, Y, and Z. 1, 2, or 3 days later, protester gets released without any charges. That's what we have seen. I think we have also seen, in at least one instance, protester is released. They have a charge. They show up to the hearing, and the charge just gets dropped, thrown out, or the hearing had already been canceled because the city was never going to prosecute this, and nobody was informed. So up until now, a Scientology protester in LA, has not actually been charged with something the city was actually dedicated to prosecuting. I think we can see that in this instance with Scott Hochstetter, that has changed. They are not charging him with 16 counts from, 9 months ago, just so that Scott can show up for the hearing and they can throw it out. This is the end for Scott Hochstetter, in my opinion. And in my opinion, the end for Scott Hochstetter could not come soon enough. It will come as no surprise to any of you that I will not be supporting any efforts to raise even a single penny for Scott's legal defense. I think Scott has said that he will not be defending himself in this. I certainly don't believe that Scott has the funds on hand that he needs to hire an attorney. Even before Scott was facing these charges, he was talking about leaving the whole protest movement and just leaving the state and going on to other things, which is exactly what he should do. And so now that he's actually facing charges, is Scott actually seriously going to try to raise funds for a lawyer from the community? Maybe. Does Scott have enough people who are dedicated to watching his absolute train wreck of a life that they would fork over money to support Scott's legal defense? I guess we'll see. It certainly would be amusing to see him try and fail. I think it would be the most sensible thing for Scott to just do a plea deal, to agree to stop protesting Scientology and leave the state, or at least in the state of California, and leave the state, go somewhere else. You've been nothing but chaos and destruction in every protest movement that you've joined. When you joined this protest movement, all the people who you had fucked and destroyed in your previous protest movements contacted all of us to warn us about you. And it's all of our fault for not taking them seriously when they said it. But the truth is, it's not that I didn't take them seriously. It's that I just honestly didn't care. And I don't mind admitting that. We are in a community. We're also in a community where, this is the anti-Scientology community. This is the ex-Scientology community. There are always people running around in this community trying to completely condemn others or someone based on the word of some unknown others. And so when, the people that had been, hurt and destroyed and knew who Scott really was, tried to warn us in the ex-Scientology community about Scott, It's not even that I didn't believe them. It's honestly that I didn't care. And I admit that. And I regret that. I regret that greatly. I think no one more than I bears as much responsibility for promoting Scott and promoting him and helping him grow his channel and helping him grow his audience. And the truth is, if it happened all over again, I'm not sure that it would have happened any differently. When you're engaged in a movement like this, you pretty much welcome anyone who's willing to put their shoulder to the wheel. You know what I mean? A lot of people are afraid to take on Scientology in any way. Former Scientologists, for the most part, are not afraid. Once you've seen the clown show that Scientology really is, you see behind the curtain, you've been a staff member, you've been a SEERG member, you've seen how generally incompetent and inept the people running the show are. You just really don't feel like there's anything to be afraid of. But even Disney's corporate attorneys, even when the Scientology and the Aftermath show were on the air, we're still afraid of Scientology. There were a number of episodes, what Mike and Leah said were some of the most damning episodes, that never saw the light of day because the corporate attorneys caved to threats from a cult that has never carried out on any of its legal threats in close to 30 years. So as a former Scientologist, when we're engaged in this type of effort, we pretty much welcome anyone who shows up. And Scott was very entertaining, and he showed a lot of bravery, and there was a real sense of camaraderie in the beginning. And I guess it's just one of those things where you're like, live by the sword, die by the sword. You've got this unhinged, homeless, psycho lunatic. It's great when he's on your side. Once he's not on your side, you sort of get exactly what you asked for. and that's just the way it is. I mean, that's just the way it is. It'd be nice for me to be like, it'd be nice if I could sit here and be like, I can see exactly where the mistakes were made and it will never happen again. And I've learned my lesson. But I'm not even sure that's true. Like I said, when you're engaged in a movement like this, you pretty much end up welcoming anyone who's willing to participate. And all I can say is the moment that Scott started to publicly direct hatred at my friends, my former Scientologist friends who've been protesting Scientology since the days of Anonymous, people who've been out of Scientology for years and years and years. Once he started to call them out, I said, nope, you don't get to do that. Not while I'm here. You don't get to do that without me telling everyone that you're not allowed to do that. And I guess I'm trying to pat myself on the back here and say that I do feel that the earliest opportunity I had to protect my friends against this psychotic ass clown, I did. And the truth is, I've been paying the fucking price for it ever since. And that's why I say, live by the sword, die by the sword. I have no fucking regrets. But I am going to ride this clown's ass until he is out of town. I mean, I don't care if he's in LA. I just care if he's still on the scene in the ex-Scientology community and the protest community. This guy's got to go. And anyone who continues to support this guy after he's even counter-protested streets, don't think I'm ever going to forget it. Don't think I'm ever going to forget who you are and what you've done, that you've supported this absolute psychotic, destructive influence who makes everything about him instead of the ex-Scientology movement. I've seen some questions about let's go through some of the starred questions and then we'll wrap this up. Okay, Marina, the end cannot come soon enough, Aaron. Ben says, I bet they've charged him with these because they're buying time to be able to charge him with something more serious. I hope so. I mean, honestly, because all the city attorney, in my opinion, all they care is that this guy goes away. And I don't, if you put him behind, they're not going to put a guy behind bars for like unlawful use of loud noise, right? But each of these charges do carry potential jail time. And I believe that all they want him to do is take a plea deal to stay away from Scientology properties. And if he has to stay away from Scientology properties, then what does he even have to stay in LA for? I mean, honestly, I don't know. Am I being too optimistic here? Harry W. says they still have his phones in custody. They must have something serious on him. Yeah, not only do they have 4 of his phones in custody, and they've had them in custody for, is it 6 to 12 months now? But then yesterday, when they had him in cuffs, they took his phone and they cloned his device. So, I don't really want to know what kind of material is on Scott's devices, but, if I'm being honest, I hope they have something really serious on him. I do, because I want to see Scott away. I want to see Scott away. If that means away behind bars or if that just means away out of California, I don't really care. It makes no difference to me. Marina says, one can only hope justice will be served. Molly Lang, good to see you again, Molly. Thank you so much for your generous super sticker. Ben, I'd be happy for him to just go away. Punch to the face. He's going to protest in prison for lack of honey buns. Yeah, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention that, presently, like as of today, Scott's biggest cheerleader, supporter, and promoter is Nora Ames. Make that make sense, folks. Scooter Mom, Toronto Audit. Funny how Streets manages to be an activist without getting swatted all the time. Yeah, it is interesting, right? It occurred to me today that I wanted to do a video. The video of me getting arrested 13 months ago, next to the video of Scott getting cuffed, not even arrested, just cuffed yesterday. And I feel like there's not a way for me to explain why that would be so funny unless you had already heard the audio of Scott getting cuffed yesterday, squealing like a pig being flayed on the conveyor belt to enter the slaughterhouse. It was literally like I could not believe those noises were coming out of a human being, a human putting on the performance of a lifetime, acting like he was literally having like slivers slid under his fingernails because the cuffs were being put on him, I guess, too tight. And then, by the way, this is the best part, guys. After they released him and he showed the marks around his wrists, the marks on his wrists were only around one side of the wrists. If the cuffs were tight, the marks would be around his whole wrist. He's taking his wrists and he's jamming them against the cuffs to make it look like he's being mistreated and abused. I mean, the guy's a charlatan. The guy's a con artist of the highest order, and he's absolutely taken advantage of and used and abused and destroyed this community. And as far as I'm concerned, the end can't come soon enough. Okay, Buddy says, Scott has a lot of enemies before he came to your movement. Exactly. Harry W., everyone is a bad actor, but him. Nora, what was that N-word again? What? Oh, narcissist. Oh, my God. You're going to get us all canceled here, Harry. What are you doing? Jojo, Aaron feeling the feels tonight. Do you think he's not too keen on DOA? Yeah, no, this guy's literally one of the most evil, destructive people I've ever encountered in my life. Brandon James, bad goat. You're so right. It's crazy how Scott gets arrested every few weeks and Streets just walks up to cops and they don't do anything to him. 49ers fan for life. It's like DOA created a cult while protesting one. That's really interesting. I've never seen anything like it. Yeah. It's funny. Actually, I want to comment on that real quick. Obviously one of the biggest easy criticisms people levy at me is that my supporters are basically in my cult. And I guess the evidence of that is that they still support me. I mean, I don't. But here's the difference, right? You cannot make the claim that I run some kind of a cult where everybody's afraid of me. And you want to know what the evidence of that is? Nobody gets criticized in this community more than I do. So obviously, people in this community are not afraid of me. But the fact is, people are terrified in the protester community of speaking out against Scott. And, oh, by the way, I forgot to mention Danny and Leah. Danny and Leah were two of Scott's biggest longtime supporters. Now they're bad actors as well. But the truth is, Danny is someone who's been terrified to speak out against Scott this entire time. And there's someone else in this community that people are terrified to call out, and that's Nora. You're not allowed to criticize Nora and Scott in this community. You're not. Everyone's allowed to criticize me. The evidence is You see it. Show me someone in this community other than me. And honestly, in the live chat, if I'm not thinking of people, please let me know and we'll pull it up. Who in this community other than me, because I'm just sick and tired of it, calls out publicly Scott and Nora? And when I say in this community, I mean in the ex-Scientology community. I don't mean on some hate YouTube channel that has, 800 subscribers and no one even knows who the hell they are. I mean someone who actually has a name, a reputation, a standing in this community, has a channel, upload regularly, face on up. Marilyn does. Marilyn Honig calls out Nora. She does. And she pays the price for it. She pays the price for it. All right, that's what I wanted to say. Mary James, Scott has done a ton of damage, picking off protester after protester. Okay, buddy. Scott Hochstetter has multiple criminal investigations going on in 3 states. I have considered turning this channel into Aaron the Bounty Hunter for a month or 2 and going out to LA and hunting down and hog tying Scott Hochstetter and bringing him into the local LA, local, police station and be like, I found him for you, boys. Is there a reward? And then I would go find, what's his name? Zero Dark Tony D'Amato. I'd go find that little fucker and I'd hog tie him as well. Call it Aaron the Bounty Hunter and just make an adventure out of it for, I say a couple months, but honestly, it would take a week. It would take a week. Yeah. Up Mayo says he's already fundraising. All right, well, good for him. We'll see if he's able to. How much is he fundraising? If someone wants to email me a link, someone email me a link to where he's trying to raise the funds. I bet you he's not trying to raise it publicly, though, is he? I bet he's not putting up a single fundraiser, right? Because he doesn't want to keep track of it. Am I wrong? Someone shoot me an email with the links if you wouldn't mind. KA, his tool, grift money for lawyer, then never hire one. He has done that several times already. Susie Q, Scott came in and immediately made protesting about himself. I'll tell you one of the perfect examples of that, of what you're talking about here, is he will routinely criticize people like me and Natalie for using either his content or other protesters' content for content, right? But then when we stop doing that, he then criticizes us for not giving him any credit and not using any of his contents. When you guys will remember, in the early days, part of what made my channel and my platform useful and helpful and made all of this so much more fun was for me to be able to use my platform to promote other people's channels and activities and platforms. It was an amazingly beneficial, symbiotic, mutually beneficial relationship. And I think a perfect example of Scott interjecting just like intense toxicity into that equation is now trying to make it a bad thing for big channels to highlight other channels and promote those creators and those channels by vilifying it, by turning it into a bad thing. And it's the exact same flavor as criticizing someone for using your content and making a buck off of you. And then when they stop, criticizing them for having a bias against you and not using your content and not giving you any credit. With Scott, it's heads I win, tails you lose. And all Scott wants is attention. That's all he wants is attention and credit. That's what it's all been about from day one. Okay. Chris on the drums. It's human nature to want to give someone the benefit of the doubt. Scott abused that. He won't get a second chance to fool us again. Constance June. Scott ran off a lot of good people, not only the creators, but also those donating money. Casey Cat. He did an immense amount of damage to the community. Buckled Up Buttercup. Have any protesters besides Scott been swatted? I don't know of any. God, that's a really good question. Has any other protester been swatted? I cannot think of one. Did Danny ever get swatted? If anyone can remember who else specifically may have gotten swatted, put it in the live chat and we'll try to catch it and star it. Okay. Ken's channel. Good to see you. Aaron in a mullet. I'm in. I'm not in a mullet, Ken. Oh, wait, but I do have a hat that has a mullet on it. And if it was within grabbing distance, I would put it on. But good to see you, Ken. Julia O'Connell, I support you. Thank you, Julia. Andrea Malloy. Hey, Aaron. Hey, Andrea. Thank you for being a channel member for 8 months. New life plan. Keep hoping I catch alive to tell you Eric Berg is using his channel to lobby for a position with RFK. Wow. No power to the big donors. Oh, that's newsworthy. I'm going to check that out. New life plan. If you don't mind, could you shoot me a link to a video where he's doing that? And then I'll put it on my list of priorities for videos. I really appreciate that. Growing up in Scientology @gmail.com. All right, everybody. That is all I have for this evening. Thank you for hanging out with me. So much more to come. You know what, guys? I'll tell you. Me and Jenna Miscavige are doing a video tomorrow, and you guys are going to love it. You're going to love it. I'm going to love it. She's going to love it. Everyone's going to love it. I think it's going to be really healing for the both of us and for the community. And I want you all to join us. So stay tuned for that. All right, guys. Thank you for hanging out. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.